So we have Dave and David, and then I'm hopeful Edgar is getting mic'd up. Edgar, great to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please have a seat. Go ahead and have a seat.
I need to leave around 6.
That's fine, we're done.
It's critical.
So we have 3 people here who, again, represent a slightly diverse group of companies, but I think it really does, again, come back to this topic of new finance. So starting here is David Simmonds, who is with MindArc and Project Entropia. Some of you may not know this company, but it actually, they operate one of the largest virtual currencies in the world in a 3D gaming system based out of Sweden. I'd love to be hearing about that. We have Edgar Kampers from Qoin in the Netherlands, really focusing on community currencies and how to deploy community currencies in local environments. So the Brixton pounds of the world, but really taking that global. And then Dave Shepherdson, who I've known since last summer when Hull announced their plans to be the first government to actually develop a crypto coin that could be used for their citizens. So 3 really interesting companies here. We have almost a virtual nation state. We have somebody who's looking at the subnational level, and then we have somebody who's actually working at the governmental level. So let's start with David. Tell us about MindArc, and tell us the key highlights about what you're doing with Project Entropia.
Yeah, sure. We started development of Entropia Universe in 1997, and it actually came live in 2003. So we spent a lot of time on the development. So it's actually been live for 12 years. But what makes what we have produced so different is that we've actually produced a virtual currency, real cash economy platform. So people can come into this virtual environment and deposit and withdraw money into their virtual wallet, and they can use the currency, which is called PED, Project Entropia Dollar, and they can actually fund their virtual life. And they can buy items, they can trade, they can be entrepreneurs, they can really do whatever they want, but they can actually take that money back out. One of the important things is for our customers is the confidence. If they're depositing money into their virtual environment and their virtual wallet, is that the money's safe. So we back we peg the Project Entropia dollar to the American dollar. So it's a fixed exchange rate. So basically, if somebody puts in $100 and they don't use it inside the virtual world, they actually can take out $100 as well. So it gives them confidence. Whether it's good to be pegged to the American dollar, but we can actually decide on what we peg to, and we've been discussing this over the last few years of what would be good to do that with.
Very similar to the VEN in a way.
Very similar, very similar.
Like I think VEN and the PED are almost like cousins.
Yeah, yeah.
Edgar, tell us about what you're doing in community currency and how Qoin operates as an agency.
Yeah, so we are working in Northwest Europe mainly. We support around 25 community currencies, which are very diverse. The biggest difference with everything I heard today is that it's purpose-oriented. So for us, it always started with a purpose, and the currency is just the instrument to make sure that it happens. So some examples of these purposes. They can be green, for example, trying to change the behavior of consumers into a green direction. It can be economy-based, so trying to make sure that you match supply and demand between SMEs in a certain region. Or it can be very social, and let me give a nice example about that one. We have one project in the south of the Netherlands, which is supported by the EU and many others, where we have 126 shops, not that much, but it's a small community. We have the municipality, 4 care organizations, the housing association, and they all bring into circulation points where they try to change the behavior of the ordinary citizen. So if I'm, for example, long-term unemployed, I get points. If I become active again, for example, by giving lessons, iPads to my neighbor, my old neighbor, I will get points if I do so from the municipality or by the care organization. I can use these points to pay my neighbor, and my neighbor can go to a shop to redeem them again. So it's circulating around. They are pegged, as you call it. They are backed, as we call it. They are backed, in this case, by euros. So we have a euro account in the middle where all the transactions are done. And we try to do that in a way which is legal. Before you know, we have the same type of problem that a lot of the cryptocurrencies have. So in our case, we make sure that we stay in the safe side, on the safe side, and that we are not becoming in this case an electronic money, or if we do so, like in Bristol, the Bristol pound is an electronic currency, then we make sure that we have all the compliance rules followed by, in this case, cooperating with a local bank, which is the Bristol Credit Union. So 25 very diverse currencies. Some of them are started by large corporates, others are started by grassroots groups. Most of them are started by municipalities or care organizations.
Are they all backed?
No. Many of them are, of course, currency is always backed, but it can be backed by a promise by me that I will do something back for you in the future. That's also a backing, and a lot of the systems follow the mutual credit system, as we call it. The more interesting ones, although that is very interesting, and I think a lot of the future that we have in finance is in mutual credit, the more interesting ones are the ones that are backed by, for example, commodities or by money. And they are more interesting because they grow faster and there is more energy on that at the moment. So most of our innovation is in that area.
Fascinating. I have so many questions about that. Dave, let's talk about Hullcoin and give us an update. You guys came out big, almost accidentally last summer. Really the first government in the world to announce collaboration or the development of a coin. Tell us, what's the update?
The update is that it was very much by accident that it was kind of leaks that we was talking about the creation of a cryptocurrency to fight levels of poverty in the city in a very similar way that Edgar sort of said that we would use it to stimulate particular behaviours and the council would issue it against particular priorities that it would have. And at that time, yes, we was looking at essentially having a mining operation and generating something and administering it. And we was looking at utilising Feathercoin at that point. The levels of publicity which that generated, whilst some of it was quite uncomfortable because there was various people within the local authority who wasn't aware of our cunning plan. Also provided with a great opportunity to work with some of the best people, essentially, within the fields of community development, around local currency, and also around the Bitcoin space as well. So we've been sort of immersed now for the past 12 months within our, what we're calling our sort of, well, not a currency design, because I've been kind of indoctrinated to say, like a community loyalty point, which will be issued, which wouldn't be backed by sterling, but would be backed by the ability for either the local authority or businesses to be able to redeem it at a discount for goods and services. So it would operate within what we would describe as predicted loss margins from within the local authority and business.
So the currency in this case would be funded through the discounts that merchants would operate in the local economy?
Yes, there's lots of waste within the local economy within businesses, and there's lots of debt. Hull is a city in the north of England. It's got about 250,000 people. Within it, it's with the austerity measures and some of the impact of austerity, 50% of the population suffer from financial stress on a regular basis. So we've got high levels of poverty, high levels of deprivation. Simultaneously, local authorities are being cut by central government, and they are passing on those cuts to those services, to the support to those people. The way that we see Hullcoin, which would apply blockchain technology, it would be a coin, but it would be completely pre-mined. There would be no speculation, no volatility. We'd centralize it, close source it, and issue it as a digital token. Would be an attempt by the social enterprise which we've created to serve the council, I think I've got to make that distinction, to use its own economic instruments as a methodology of stimulating the local economy. So saying to those people, instead of just cutting services and then increasing levels of debt, which is incurred by the local authorities, such as council tax debt, debt on rent, the local authority is still one of the biggest housing providers in the city of Hull, and business rates as well. And we would seek to apply our community loyalty point within predicted loss margins.
So we talk about these idea of local communities using local currencies. In the virtual world, Entropia Universe has actually become a wealth creation mechanism for your users. Can you tell us about how that works, and maybe give some of the companies here that maybe are building these communities themselves some ideas on how they can make that like viable for their own communities?
Yeah, I think first of all, just to show the size of it, of what Entropia is and what the currency is there, is that if you would compare Entropia Universe to a country and look at a GMP, we've got around about $500 million a GMP. Every month we have around about 1 billion microtransactions every month. And these are transactions between users, and they're inside a virtual world, and we use a graphic engine, which is one of the top graphic engines called the CryEngine. And very beautiful, they make an avatar and they can actually come in and they can have fun, they can be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can be an entrepreneur even if they earn just $1 a month. We have had people in there which have, there's one person which bought an asteroid, which we made inside the virtual world. And this was a real big success story. He paid $100,000 for this, for a piece of virtual item. But he was earning, once he got it up and running and attracting people and entertaining people, it's very important to entertain, he was earning about $15,000 a month out of this. And after 3.5 years, he sold it to another player for $635,000.
This is what gets me so excited.
That's on
virtual
one
real
level.
estate.
Yeah, that's a very big level, but far away from the normal type of person who can come in.
But it is happening,
And
right? So it's a leading indicator.
And we're talking to different authorities around the world to actually bring our system to places for education and training and employment as well. We feel as though that we have that platform. It can be used for gaming, it can be used for all of these different types of things. And part of it is entrepreneurship. Just because it's online, you can still supply people services. And if it's entertainment, it's still a service.
Mm-hmm. So you can earn a living in your virtual worlds.
Absolutely.
Something approaching a living.
Yeah.
Edie Lush, our executive editor, mentioned Snow Crash and Neil Stephenson's science fiction books this morning. And in his books, the entire populations, say post-2025, are actually making their living on virtual economies. We know that in China, you have entire groups of people who like mine gold for World of Warcraft and things like that. It's a world away from what you're doing, Edgar. How do you see the digital world and to some extent blockchain technologies impacting these local community currencies that you guys are developing? And how willing are these people who are creating these local currencies to try to embrace technology in an effort to scale?
So I think it's not that different, to be honest. So what we try to do with our clients is try to find a business case for the municipality, for the care organization, for the business association. So you always try to find a case, because if you do not find it, you will be gone after a certain period. Funding stops and then the system stops. So in the Bristol Pound, we have, around 900 shops that are involved. We have a mayor that accepted part of his salary in Bristol Pound. We have a major buy-in from people that are proud of living and working in Bristol. So that is a real case, although it's not what the size of that somebody pays for a meteorite or whatever it was. So that is the same thing, I think. The other thing is that the technology is just technology in the end, isn't it? So we are very enthusiastic about blockchain technology, but we also see that it is not grown up. We can do very fast and very cheap payment systems using NFC payments, for example. So just with your Oyster card, you do beep in the shop and you get it and you can pay it to somebody else. You use your mobile phone if this is easier. It doesn't matter that much. It's instantly, it's in a second, it's very fast as everybody would expect it with a euro or a pound sterling
How
payment.
do those payments work? Do they run over the ACH SWIFT rails, or?
No, we build our own rails, because if you use bank rails, it will be too expensive because there's always costs involved. So it's much cheaper these days to build your own rails. So we do that, basically. So in each of these systems, we have our own terminals. We have the NFC, we have the SMS payments, text payments. And it's just working. It's not very complex anymore. And then I think that the next generation might be blockchain, then not blockchain. It may be something like Ethereum or one of the other options that we heard today, where we are able to do things much faster, and where you are also able to put a purpose in the currency. Because blockchain doesn't have any other purpose than being distributed and centerless or whatever. But it's in our case, we want to make sure that the currency and the goal that you like to reach with the currency are in one line. So if I have a social currency, I'm not going to use a currency which is based on euros, which is interest bearing, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't do that. I will create probably a point system, point-based system or a time-based system where people pay each other in hours. That's something else. If I want to have sustainable currency, I probably choose sustainable kilowatt hours, which is a very good measure to do something like that. And the moment you start to see that you can create a currency which is in line with your own purpose, with your own aims, with your own objectives, then there's so much more creativity than is possible now with the blockchain, at least in the current generation, or which is possible with the pound sterling or the euro, because we can really redesign this. And the only industry that understood this are the gaming industry, because in all the other industries, this is way beyond their thinking. Mm-hmm. So we have a whole list of things that you can tweak, basically, if you build a currency. It's around 100 things, 100 different, what we call mechanics, that you can change. And this
so
is
you can kind of go shopping for components of a currency and put it together?
And you have to do this in a clever way, because if you make mistakes, you are leaking or whatever. So you try to form a currency where you have enough income for the system, if you want to make it sustainable in an economical way, and where you speed up the dynamics, so the use of the currency on the platform all the time. So that's the big trick. And we look more and more to gaming mechanics also. So it's probably, we have around 70, 80 different gaming mechanics that we found in our research. So that means that you have around 170 different things that you can change. And the financial industry uses many of them, but I think they maybe 40 or whatever. Yeah. So they have interest or no interest. You have transaction cost or no transaction cost. You have a saving account or only an exchange account, whatever. So you have mechanics also in the normal financial industry, but you can't go really creative, and we can, and that's a big difference.
Are these mechanics available in code format, or are they kind of theoretical, like in a white paper format?
There are open source programs that are using most of the mechanics. So there is a program developed by a Dutch organization called Cyclos, which you can download in the old version at least, and which is having around half of all these mechanics. The moment you go further, you have to start developing yourself. And we really hope that the blockchain will develop in a way that we can include these type of mechanics in the currency design. So again, the goals, the end user, and the currency that we use are on one line, in a very logical line, and everything happening in the currency will strengthen the goal that you try to reach.
I'd love to come back about the national response to local currencies, but in a way, maybe this is something that you can talk about, Dave. What has been the UK government's reaction to Hullcoin, and when are we going to see it?
Well, I think in terms of our, because we're sort of locked into a design process, and there's 3 strands to that, and I think we know all of this, Edgar. There's the technical design, but there's the really what you start with, and you're right, is what is the social and economic goals of what we want to achieve with your local currency, and then you just choose the best way to be able to distribute that in a way that's encouraging, in this case, financial inclusion and anti-poverty work, because that's our perceived goals. From the technical side of thing with the crypto element, there's been some questions regarding the Department of Work and Pensions about the idea of, because obviously when the story was leaked, it was kind of this idea that Hull City Council was printing its own money and then giving it away to benefit claimants, so they didn't have to pay the bedroom tax or something like that. So we answered fully, and we're engaging both with HMRC and the Department of Work and Pensions around making sure, and we're not trying to get round anything, we're just kind of saying, well, this is what where we're at, and this is where we're going in terms of the economic modelling around the local currency end of things. The crypto end of things, we're looking at with a robust plan 2017, but with the idea of just utilising the blockchain and not having a speculative mining operation, having everything pre-mined and then just distributed within that. I think we can get the payment transaction time down to something like seconds, and the idea is use with the upgrades and the developments within the blockchain, industries that we're talking to, that will certainly be feasible, plus potentially other applications by the time we're actually ready to go online. We're not going for a time-backed system. Again, we want to be able to recognise outcomes as opposed to hours. We're not looking for a time banking type model with the Hullcoin operation. So we want to be able to verify almost like a proof of community work, making sure that some value is being created within the community in Hull. So the vast majority of money which is in the corporate economy is issued at the point of debt, or some debt or liability is being created. We want to stimulate what's called the cooperative economy. So Hullcoin will become the blood supply of the cooperative economy, using the local authorities' economic instruments to be able to stimulate certain behaviours, which will also provide a saving to the public purse as well. So, but I think in terms of the authorities in the UK government, especially particularly when the initial story was released, we just put out our stall. This is what we think it is. This is where it comes. We're very fortunate to have my colleague Lisa Boville, who's got a track record within welfare rights, who's able to sort of distinguish what could be classed as income and what can be classed as capital. And I think the idea of going down the points system as opposed to calling it like a whole pound or something like that, where it's got very monetary tying, it helps us to be more creative with the design of the project.
So it may not be counted as income if a person receives a certain amount of Hullcoin. It may not be counted as, say, cash income.
Yeah,
right.
It wouldn't. It's like a loyalty point, essentially. A corporate loyalty point is not thing as cash income. And if you're just working within dead economic space, so you know, I mean, a cinema may be a third full on particular times and dates. That empty seat is just dead space up until the point that the film starts showing. That seat may have cost £10. At the point that the film starts showing, it's gone down to zero. So in that context, we want to be able to employ the community loyalty point to provide a 50% discount on something that they wouldn't have been able to fill anyway. That way, it's a good CSR model for businesses to be able to sort of recognise the good work, because for everybody who comes presenting a Hullcoin within that cinema, they know some sort of social value is being created within the community. They buy some popcorn and a drink at an interval, that's money going to the till. So there's an economic argument.
But it's really the merchants, in a sense, it's the merchants that are funding that because they're discounting the things that you can buy with it. So there is this kind of social element. Mm-hmm. David, you guys, Entropia Universe was the first virtual currency to get a banking license, which I think if you talk to a Bitcoin company, they would be amazed, because that's certainly not happening with Bitcoin companies. Walk us through that. I know that you guys aren't really using it, but you guys do have potentially the ability to be a bank. And what kind of impact would that have if you guys decided to pursue that further?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to go a little bit back to the currencies. I mean, there's a lot of currencies out there, cryptocurrencies, coins, some really, really smart ones which aren't being used. One of the most important things is confidence in the customer, from the customer. If you haven't got that confidence in the customer, it's not going to you're not going to have people using it, you're not going to have people depositing in it. So making sure that the customer is confident in your product is one of the biggest things. And this was one part of the banking license. We applied to the Swedish banking authorities in 2006 and went through a long process of producing everything which we had on the whole Entropia universe, which they understood that it is actually a virtual currency. People are depositing money, they're withdrawing money. What we wanted to do was to give even more confidence to our customers, so that when they actually are playing inside this virtual world, they're depositing money not into a virtual wallet, which is basically into a company, as in a limited company. They're depositing this money into their own bank account. And this bank account has got all the guarantees of a real bank, which has the guarantees that if anything goes down, the government pays for it, a percentage. So what we wanted to give, we have
So
customers.
kind of in the US, that would be like FDIC.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So that was, we have our customers now, our users, they're depositing a lot of money into basically a limited company, which we are at this moment. But once we'd open up the bank, they would be depositing into their own account. And every time they used something inside this virtual universe, we would take a microtransaction. And like I said, we have around about 1 billion microtransactions at the moment. So these would be small transactions coming from their bank account to the usage of the virtual items. And it's entertainment again. Unfortunately, during the time when we received the banking license in 2007, there's something which I think affected us all in this year, the world crisis, and we decided it would be prudent to postpone the banking license. We've gone through a lot of stages now, and we're coming to a stage where we believe that this could be a good prospect for us to go for it again. And they've actually said to us that we've gone through a lot, we like what you do, and so hopefully it wouldn't take too long to get it back up there.
Cool.
But it's confidence. That's what I'm giving confidence to a user to use your virtual currency.
Right. So it's another element of trust, right?
Yeah.
A layer. I want to turn it out to the audience for questions. As we kind of think about that and come up with a question, I want to ask you real quick about this national versus local dichotomy. When you're setting up these local currencies in these markets in the Netherlands and the UK, how do the governments or the central banks that run the national currencies feel about these? And is there generally, what do you think, growing support now that people can see the social benefits?
We get a lot of support, also by governments, both on the local level, regional level, and national level. So I have a workshop Monday in the Dutch National Bank, for example. In 3 weeks' time, we will have a large workshop, 3 workshops in a row, for the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So there is a lot of interest. And you have also, I think you have to see that most of the professional community currencies that started in the last years were funded by or governments, national governments, or by the EU. And especially the EU sees a great opportunity here to support innovation. I think this is the main reason why they try to drive this industry to the next level, because it comes from very, very grassroots, and now everybody's interested to go to the next level. This is, of course, a long route, but it's going pretty well, I think. So with this money, for example, we made a website where you can go, which is community-currency.info, which is knowledge-based, wiki-style type of website that we make together with the New Economics Foundation and other partners also in the UK, where you can find a lot of information. You will find most of the models. You can really teach yourself a lot of these standard things, including about taxes, compliances, insurances, and all the other problems that you will meet if you are in this realm. And also the difference between the countries. So very often the Netherlands is easier in this than, for example, France or Belgium, to have 2 examples, but also like the UK. We don't have to pay taxes if it's in the social area, and you have to pay taxes if it's commercial. And because the tax authorities don't want to bother with this issue each time when it comes up, they say basically if you earn less than 3,000 points per year, then we don't want to know it. We don't care. You do it. So that gives a lot of free space for grassroots initiatives or for a municipality to start a currency like this and really start to change the behavior of people. And then again, if it's a discount, of course you can't pay tax on a discount. That would be weird. You had a discount, so that's weird.
They might try.
Yeah, they might try, but then we need to have our act together, I think, and explain them why we did this. And so we will have expert notes, and we work together with both academics and lawyers on all of these issues to make sure that we have it right. And if they come, which they don't, for information, but not to beat us or whatever. And to be there,
You really can start to imagine a world where you have lots of ways to get what you want, right? And that in turn can help to drive a local economy. So do we have questions for this esteemed group?
Questions for each speaker. For Azure, could I ask how do you manage the caches in the local communities? For example, if I like to withdraw some caches between the virtual currencies and cash, how can I do that? From the ATM or from something else? And how do you educate the senior people in the community to use the virtual currencies? And second, for the day, would you like to build some
The license which we were issued was the same as the top 4 banks in Sweden. So
Full license.
full license. So that was giving all the services.
Great.
Okay, and can you pay council tax with Hullcoin?
Okay. And I wouldn't necessarily want to speak on behalf of Hull City Council, saying we'll definitely take council tax payments in the first instance. But the model which we're sort of adopting to some extent is something called the civics model, which was I think it was developed by Bernard Litter, which it does exactly that. It says it looks at the way that we're interpreting it. The council, Hull City Council, will know how much it's going to be seeking to write off in bad debt, in arrears, over the next financial year. It will budget for that. It's not going to budget for 100% return on council tax payments. No matter what your ideological position is, that space represents failure. It's either if you think it's a failure on the individual to participate within the economy to such an extent where they can generate enough money to pay their council tax, or whether you think it's an issue with the state not providing enough opportunities for that individual to participate within the economy. But everybody kind of recognises that it's a failure, and that's the worst of all worlds. What we want to be able to do is use that space and employ that. So the Hull City Council would say, actually, we're going to employ every household in Hull. We will invite them, we won't mandate them, we will invite them to provide a contribution in their council tax, for the forthcoming year to provide us with a minimum of 4 Hullcoin and a maximum of 10 Hullcoin. And at that point, all hell breaks loose. Everyone goes banana. Well, how do I get all of these magic beans that the local authority is now sort of expecting me to provide as part of my council tax contribution? In which then the council tends to all the great community work that it can get involved in. You know what I mean? There's Meals on Wheels, supporting people to do IT lessons, lots of good things that you can get involved in which you'll be recognised with a community loyalty point which you can provide as a contribution to your council tax.
So I love this idea that it's kind of evolved into a community loyalty point. So you're really getting rewarded for helping your community?
Yeah, it's about the city council, instead of just chasing debt. I mean, your debt recovery conversation with the public is completely different to when can you pay and how can you pay to what can you do. It's more of an asset-based approach to working with communities, in which then it's like I said, the local authority and its partners. When I talk about Hull, City of Hull, it's Hull, the local authority, businesses, charities, community groups, everything really. It's not just the council. It's an asset-based approach to that issue. The way that we're using a peer-to-peer exchange, using the blockchain technology with Bitcoin, is just a useful way to be able to do that, and it doesn't go anywhere near sterling. It doesn't have an exchange rate with sterling. Can't be exchanged with sterling. It stays within its own, like I say, the cooperative economy, as we like to describe it.
Okay, question?
Today in Hull City Council, I admire what you're doing with the Hullcoin. You must have had one hell of a job to persuade the powers that be that what you're doing isn't e-money or isn't related to currency in any way, because what you're doing is you're exchanging value for value.
Yeah.
So the value is labour for services, that type of thing. How has that argument developed, and how are you keeping on the side of the regulators that you are?
It's an ongoing conversation with the City Council. The City Council, when the story first broke, various senior figures really did freak out. They really did not. They thought we was planning to take a bunch of public money and take a speculative punt on Bitcoin. That was the general. They didn't think of the actual, a lot of the mechanics what was there. But we had a pretty primitive. We were on a big learning curve. But it was a sort of blessing in disguise, I suppose, because we have been able to work with people within the legal and the sort of local economics kind of local currency sort of framework. So I sort of have a look at the different space that we can work in and how can we get the most value. So it's come out from this sort of community loyalty point. At the moment, the council are sympathetic to what we want to do, and they're sort of trying to assess what's the safest but most useful relationship to have with it. So I mean, the idea is, and not to do it probably anything sort of cryptocurrency related, is to actually start looking at some sort of customer journeys using some very low level, low risk examples. So opening up some of the leisure centres, some of the event spaces. You know what I mean? The City Council put on some very nice sort of Russian orchestras, things. A lot of them are half empty. So they'll just be able to look at the benefit for business, the individual, for the community group, and chart that, to put that case towards that, but actually to look at this idea of corporate loyalty and the idea that, you know, I mean, Tesco's and all the big brands are creating value, they are creating tokens which are redeemable for discount. What is to stop a democratic institution doing that around social value and community value? What is to stop, really?
That's great.
But I think your question was also if this can be seen as electronic money, and I think it can't, because there is no euro in, euro out, or pound in, pound out option there. So maybe even if I can buy these coins with my money, but I'm not able to cash that back, then I'm not fully on the safe side, but at least you are, it's the good direction. So if you have several of these measures built in the currency design, then you are on the good side. And at the same time, you ask permission. You just write a letter and you say, this is what we want to do, and we think it's like this. Do you agree with us? And up till now, at least, both in the UK and in the Netherlands, we always got a letter back saying, we think it's okay. And, or if you reach that, can you please inform us again, or whatever. It's like this. So they are interested in this type of innovations. They think it can be part of a future where we have much more diversity in currency land, not only in financial products, but also in currencies that maybe compete or are there for different purposes, and you might even have 4 or 5 different currencies on your mobile phone, one of them being pound sterling, to buy, for example, an iPad, but you need to do other things as well. So this could be the Civic, which is a very good idea, by the way. It could be an incentive currency to make sure that you use less waste, or that you use the public transport more, or whatever. And it could be, I don't know, cultural currency, to make sure that the little amount of money that governments have these days to support the cultural sector circulates more often in our communities before it's cashed out again. So it's this type of thinking, and they like it. Most of them like it. They're humans.
And David, your company has successfully navigated this. You said something earlier today that I found really interesting. Both in the UK, I guess in Europe, and in the US, you guys have cleared the way that Entropia dollars, PEDs work, and you enable a customer to buy in and also to pull back out and go back into their bank account. So can you just speak quickly about that before we wrap up? I think it's a really important distinction.
Okay, and we went through the whole process when we were building the economic platform of the real cash economy. We understood that there would probably be, we'd need to show what this was, so that people were putting money into an in-game wallet. They were in the game, doing their activities in the game, and these activities are 2 people with their avatars trading each other. There's no kind of tax inside a virtual world. And when people want to take out their money, it's very similar to near enough every other online business. You're putting money in, you take it out, you declare it, you pay your taxes on that. We wanted to go through and really show to the authorities that Entropia Universe was a very much a skill-based game, so that people come into the game. It depends on their skill, what they do, the decisions they make, of how whether they're doing well or doing. You know, if you make a stupid decision, it actually costs you real money. And that's the consequence of actually playing Entropia Universe. And that makes it, to me anyway, far better than any other game, because it doesn't matter if you go into any game, whether it's one of these telephone games or a big PC game, that unless there's a consequence, it's just playing a game. With Entropia Universe, the consequence is if you make stupid decisions and bad decisions, there's a good chance you're going to lose money. If you make the right decisions, you can actually make money. And we've gone through this and we've shown the authorities in Sweden and in the US to show that it is a skill-based game. So it keeps it away from a lot of the currencies.
Okay, that could be a model for some of you Bitcoin companies out there. Okay, thank you guys very much. It's now 6 o'clock. We had a series of workshop discussions that were going to be cornered around various elements of this sector, dark web and fraud and security. And since we're out of time, we're actually moving those online. So we'd encourage you to go to hubculture.com and to search in the hubs for the Liquidity Summit group. This is actually a revolving hub that has been going now for 3 years. It's a place for you to all connect after this event, to be able to connect. And it's really cool because we'll be writing up notes and documentation from today so that you can refer back to that as a resource for information and capability. All of the videos from each session will be going online over the weekend and into next week via hublive.tv and our YouTube channel at basically Hub Culture. So I guess it really remains to say thank you very much. There are drinks outside. There's so many interesting people here in the room today, and we're really grateful to Bloomberg for really making this happen and working with us over the last 6 months to put together such an amazing group of speakers from throughout the day and people who've attended from across the digital asset industry. Special thanks to DevCore, which we partnered with from the Bitcoin side, from DATA, the Digital Asset Transfer Authority, which is really working with us on regulatory stuff. And then, of course, a final mention for Ven.vc. Please go get yourself some Ven and trade it to some friends. So thank you all, and let's have a drink.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.